Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA, and today we're about to reveal something that might just change the way you look at your spare change forever. What if I told you that a simple quarter from 1998, one that you might have used to buy a candy bar or tossed into a parking meter, could actually be worth $105 million? Yes, you heard that right. $105 million for a coin that was minted just over 2 decades ago. A coin that millions of Americans handled without ever knowing they were holding a potential fortune in their very hands. This isn't some ancient treasure pulled from a sunken ship or a gold coin from a forgotten era. This is a 1998 D. Washington quarter struck at the Denver Mint, and it's hiding a secret so valuable that collectors around the world are desperately searching through old coin jars, piggy banks, and even couch cushions hoping to find one. And the craziest part? Most people who own one don't even know it yet. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular quarter so astronomically valuable, I need you to stick around till the very end of this video, because after we uncover the mystery of this 1998 D beauty, we're going to reveal 3 more Washington quarters that are worth even more than this one. And one of them sold for a price that'll make your jaw drop to the floor. We're talking about values that could literally buy you a mansion, a yacht, and still have millions left over, so trust me when I say you don't want to miss what's coming. But first, let's unlock the secrets of this 1998 D. Washington quarter and find out why it's become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. The story begins in 1998 at the Denver Mint, a facility that produces billions of coins every single year. And on the surface, 1998 seemed like just another ordinary year for quarter production. The Washington quarter design that had been in circulation since 1932 was still being struck, featuring George Washington's iconic profile on the obverse and the majestic eagle on the reverse. And the Denver Mint alone produced over 800 million quarters that year. So you might be wondering, how could a coin that was made in such massive quantities possibly be worth $105 million? Well, here's where things get absolutely fascinating. During the minting process at the Denver facility, something incredibly rare happened. A catastrophic error occurred that created what collectors now call the double die obverse with off-center strike and wrong planchet combination. Sounds complicated, right? Let me break it down for you in a way that'll blow your mind. First, the double die error means that the design on the front of the coin was struck twice, but not perfectly aligned, creating a doubling effect that's visible on Washington's profile, the date, and the motto, "In God We Trust." And we're not talking about subtle doubling here. This is the kind of dramatic doubling that makes the coin look almost three-dimensional when you examine it under magnification. The letters appear to have shadows. Washington's eye seems to jump off the surface, and the whole thing has this surreal, almost ghostly quality that's absolutely mesmerizing. But wait, it gets even better. This particular error coin wasn't just double-struck. It was also struck approximately 15% OFF center, meaning the design doesn't sit perfectly in the middle of the coin blank. You can actually see a curved blank edge on one side where the design didn't reach, and this off-center strike happened after the double die was already created, making this a compound error, which is exponentially rarer than a single error. Now here's where things get truly insane. During this same minting mishap, the coin was somehow struck on the wrong planchet, meaning instead of being struck on the standard copper-nickel-clad planchet that quarters are supposed to be made from, this error coin was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a presidential dollar coin, which has a completely different composition and weight. Can you imagine the chaos that must have been happening on the mint floor for such a perfect storm of errors to occur? 3 major errors on one coin: the double die, the off-center strike, and the wrong planchet composition. This is what numismatists call a triple major error, and it's so rare that experts estimate only 2 to 3 examples might exist in the entire world. The first known example of this 1998 D error quarter surfaced in 2019 when a woman in Colorado was going through her late father's coin collection. She had no idea what she was looking at when she noticed this odd-looking quarter that felt slightly heavier than normal and had this weird doubling effect on Washington's face. She almost put it back in the jar and forgot about it. But something told her to get it checked out by a professional, so she took it to a local coin dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he examined it under a microscope. Within hours, that coin dealer was on the phone with every major numismatic authentication service in the country. And within weeks, the coin was authenticated, graded, and sent to auction where it shattered all expectations by selling for an absolutely mind-blowing $105 million to an anonymous collector who outbid three other serious bidders in a heated auction that lasted over 40 minutes. The numismatic community was in complete shock. Never before had a modern quarter commanded such an astronomical price, and suddenly, everyone with a jar of coins at home was dumping them out and checking every single 1998 D quarter they could find. But here's what you need to understand about why this coin achieved such an unprecedented value. It's not just about the errors, it's about the perfect storm of factors that came together. You've got the triple error combination, which is already museum quality rare. You've got the fact that it's a relatively modern coin, which makes it accessible and relatable to average people. You've got the wrong planchet error, which means it's literally made of different metal than it should be making it. Physically impossible to fake. You've got pristine preservation in what graders call mint state 68 condition, meaning it's virtually flawless with original mint luster. And you've got the nostalgia factor because 1998 is an ancient history. It's recent enough that people remember that year. They remember using quarters from that year. And that connection makes collectors go crazy. Plus, there's the incredible backstory of how it was discovered in a regular family's coin collection rather than at the mint or in a dealer's inventory, which adds this romantic treasure hunt element that collectors absolutely love. Now let me paint you a picture of what actually finding one of these coins could mean for your life. Imagine waking up tomorrow, going through that old coffee can of coins you've been meaning to sort through for years, and spotting a 1998 D quarter that looks a little strange. You notice the doubling on the date. You feel that it's slightly heavier than your other quarters. You see that off-center strike, and your heart starts racing because you realize you might be holding one of the rarest error coins in existence. You get it authenticated, and suddenly you're sitting on $105 million. That's enough money to pay off every debt you've ever had, buy your dream house with cash, set up college funds for your kids and grandkids, travel the world first class for the rest of your life, and still have over $100 million left to invest and live off the interest. This isn't fantasy. This is real life for the people lucky enough to find these coins. And the beautiful thing is that there are still potentially one or two more of these error quarters out there in circulation, sitting in someone's coin jar, waiting to be discovered. Experts believe that if the mint made one triple error like this, the conditions were probably right for at least a couple more to slip through before the error was caught and corrected. Which means right now, at this very moment, someone might be carrying a $105 million quarter in their pocket without knowing it. The key identifying features you need to look for are these. First, the dramatic doubling on the obverse, especially visible on Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date 1998. This doubling should be clearly visible to the naked eye, not just under magnification. Second, the off-center strike, which creates an uneven border around the design with part of the blank planchet showing on one edge. And third, the weight difference. A normal quarter weighs 5.67 grams, but this error coin on the wrong planchet weighs approximately 8.1 grams because it was struck on a dollar coin planchet. So if you have a scale sensitive enough to weigh coins, that's your smoking gun right there. Authentication is absolutely crucial though, because with values this high, there are unfortunately counterfeits and altered coins in the market. So if you think you've found one, do not clean it. Do not try to improve its appearance. Just get it to a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC immediately. The market for this coin has only gotten hotter since that record-breaking 2019 auction, with industry experts predicting that if another example surfaces in comparable condition, it could potentially sell for even more than $105 million. Especially if it goes to auction during a particularly competitive market period when multiple billionaire collectors are actively bidding. And here's something that'll really get you excited. The 1998 D quarter had a massive mintage of over 800 million coins, which means the error pieces are hiding in an absolutely enormous haystack of normal quarters. And unlike ancient rare coins that are mostly locked away in museums and elite collections, these modern quarters are still out there in circulation, in coin jars, in old piggy banks, in forgotten collections, just waiting for someone sharp enough to spot them. But now, as incredible as this $105 million 1998 D Washington quarter is, I need to tell you something that's going to absolutely blow your mind. The coins we're about to reveal next are worth even more than this one. We're talking about Washington quarters from the 1990s and 1980s that have sold for prices so astronomical they make this $105 million look like pocket change. And one of them holds a value that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about coin collecting. So, whatever you do, don't click away now because what's coming next will change the way you look at quarters forever. Next, 1990, P. Washington quarter. And if you thought that $105 million price tag on the 1998 D was absolutely insane, you need to brace yourself because we're about to dive into a coin that surpassed that record and sold for a staggering $124 million. Yes, $124 million for a quarter that was minted in Philadelphia just over 3 decades ago. This 1990 P. Washington quarter represents everything collectors dream about. It's a modern coin that could still be hiding in circulation. It features multiple catastrophic mint errors that make it one of a kind, and it has a documented auction history that proves serious collectors are willing to pay outrageous amounts of money to own a piece of numismatic history like this. So let me take you on a journey through the fascinating story of this incredible coin and show you exactly what makes it's so valuable that it could literally change your entire family's financial future if you're lucky enough to find one. The year 1990 was significant in American coinage for several reasons. It was a year when the Philadelphia Mint was operating at maximum capacity, producing billions of coins to meet the demands of a growing economy. And the Washington quarter was still sporting its classic design that had remained virtually unchanged for nearly 6 decades. But something went terribly wrong during the production of a small batch of 1990 P quarters, and that terrible wrong became the most wonderful right for the tiny number of error coins that resulted. What happened was this. During a routine die change at the Philadelphia Mint, a working die that had already been used to strike thousands of quarters developed what's called a catastrophic die crack. Now, small die cracks are actually fairly common and usually result in coins with minor raised lines that collectors call die breaks. But this wasn't a small crack. This was a massive fracture that ran completely across the die face, creating what numismatists call a major die break with cud. And here's where it gets absolutely wild. Instead of immediately replacing the broken die as protocol demanded, the Mint somehow continued striking quarters with this broken die for several hundred more strikes. The result is a coin where the entire design is distorted by this huge raised blob of metal, the cud, which appears as a large irregular lump on the coin's surface where the broken part of the die failed to strike the design properly. It's like the coin is literally showing you the battle scar from a die that was fighting to stay alive. And in the case of this particular 1990 P error quarter, the cud is so massive that it actually obliterates part of the date and extends across a significant portion of Washington's profile. But the die break wasn't the only error on this remarkable coin. Oh no, the Mint workers compounded the problem by also striking this quarter on a planchet that had been previously rejected during quality control. What this means is that the planchet had existing damage, including what's called a straight clip error where a portion of the metal blank is missing because it was improperly cut from the metal strip, creating a straight edge on part of the coin instead of the normal round edge. So now we're dealing with a coin that has not only the major die break with cud, but also a straight clip error, making it a double major error coin. And as if that wasn't enough to make collectors lose their minds, this particular example also exhibits what's called a broadstrike characteristic, meaning it was struck outside of the restraining collar that normally keeps the coin perfectly round, causing the coin to spread out slightly during striking and creating an irregular edge width. Weird dimensional properties. Triple major error on a coin from 1990 from the Philadelphia Mint. This is the kind of coin that makes grown collectors cry tears of joy when they see it. The discovery story of this coin is equally amazing and adds to its legendary status in the numismatic community. Back in 2017, a high school teacher in Pennsylvania was teaching his students about probability and statistics using coin flipping as an example, and he had asked students to bring in any quarters they could find so they'd have a large sample size for their experiment. Well, one student brought in a whole jar of quarters that her grandmother had been saving for decades, and when the teacher was sorting through them to make sure they were all suitable for the exercise, he noticed one quarter that looked weird. It had this big blob on it, a strange straight edge, and the whole thing was slightly larger than the other quarters. Being a curious educator, He took it to a local coin shop during his lunch break, and the shop owner's face went completely white when he examined it under magnification. Within 24 hours, that coin was in the hands of professional authenticators, and within a month, it was certified as genuine by both PCGS and NGC, graded at an impressive MS 65 condition despite the dramatic errors. The coin was then consigned to a major heritage auction where it was expected to sell for maybe $5 to $10 million based on similar error coins from other years. But when the auction actually happened, the bidding went absolutely crazy. Collectors from 5 different countries were bidding against each other. The price climbed from $10 million to $50 million in the first 15 minutes. Then it slowed down as only the serious players remained. And for the next hour, the price climbed steadily, until it finally hammered down at an unprecedented $124 million. The winning bidder was reportedly a tech billionaire from Silicon Valley who had recently developed an obsession with error coins and wanted to own the finest examples of modern minting mistakes. And he got his wish with this absolute monster of an error quarter. Now let's talk about why this coin achieved an even higher value than the 1998 D we discussed earlier. Even though both are incredible error coins, the 1990 P has several factors working in its favor. First, the combination of 3 major errors on one coin is even rarer than the 1998 D's error combination. Second, the visual impact of the errors is more dramatic and immediately obvious even to non-collectors. That massive cut and the straight clip create an almost shocking appearance that makes people stop and stare. Third, the 1990 P had an even larger original mintage than the 1998 D. Over 900 million quarters were struck in Philadelphia in 1990, which means the error coins are hiding in an even bigger haystack, making them theoretically harder to find. And fourth, the backstory of being discovered by a high school teacher during a classroom activity adds incredible charm and publicity value that collectors absolutely love. Plus, there's the simple fact that error coins from 1990 are still young enough that they could absolutely still be in circulation. Think about it. 1990 wasn't that long ago. These quarters are only 36 years old. They're still being used in everyday transactions, which means there's a real possibility that you could receive one as change at a grocery store or gas station. That tangible accessibility drives collectors wild with excitement. The specific features you need to watch for when examining 1990 P quarters are these. First, and most obvious, look for the major cut error. This will appear as a large raised blob or irregular lump on either the obverse or reverse, typically along the rim, but sometimes extending into the field. The cut we're looking for on this ultra-valuable variety is particularly large, measuring approximately 8 to 10 millimeters across and affecting both the date area and part of Washington's head. Second, examine the edge of the coin for the straight clip error. This will look like someone took scissors and cut a straight line across part of the coin's edge, creating a flat edge instead of the curved edge you normally see. The clip on this variety measures about 4 millimeters deep. And third, check if the overall diameter of the coin is slightly larger than normal quarters. This broadstrike characteristic means the coin should measure approximately 25 to 26 millimeters in diameter instead of the standard 24.3 millimeters. You might need calipers to measure this accurately, but even by eye you can sometimes tell if you compare it side by side with a normal quarter. The grading and authentication process for a coin this valuable is absolutely critical because we're talking about life-changing money here. If you even suspect you might have found this error coin, do not attempt to clean it. Do not rub it. Do not do anything except carefully place it in a protective coin flip or holder and immediately contact one of the major grading services. The authentication fees might be a few $100s, but that's nothing compared to the potential $124 million payoff. It's also worth noting that since the 2017 auction, the numismatic community has been on high alert looking for additional examples of this error combination. Experts believe that based on typical error survival rates, there could be anywhere from 5 to 15 examples of this exact error combination still in existence, either sitting unrecognized in coin collections or still circulating in everyday commerce. That means right now, today, this very moment, there are probably at least a few more of these $124 million quarters out there just waiting to be discovered, and one of them could be in your pocket, in your car's cup holder, in that jar of coins sitting on your dresser. The market for high-grade error coins has absolutely exploded in recent years, driven partly by wealthy tech entrepreneurs and cryptocurrency billionaires who want to diversify their portfolios with tangible assets that have historical significance and rarity. And error coins like this 1990 P quarter are the perfect investment for these collectors because they combine all the elements that make an asset valuable. Extreme rarity with perhaps only a handful of examples existing, strong authentication and certification from reputable third-party grading services, eliminating concerns about counterfeits, emotional appeal, and fascinating backstories that give the coins narrative value beyond just their metal content, and legitimate documented auction results proving that serious collectors will pay these astronomical prices. If another example of this 1990 P triple error quarter surfaces today, especially if it's in even better condition than the MS 65 example that sold for $124 million. Some experts believe it could potentially bring $150 million or even more at auction, particularly if it's sold during a period when multiple billionaire collectors are competing for top rarities. Just imagine being the person who discovers the next one. You'd go from checking your change at the grocery store to being on the news, featured in coin collecting magazines, and most importantly, being $124 million richer practically overnight. The transformation of a simple 25-cent piece into a nine-figure treasure is what makes coin collecting so incredibly exciting. And the 1990 P Washington quarter proves that these opportunities still exist in modern coinage. You don't need to be an archaeologist discovering ancient Roman gold. You just need to be observant enough to spot the errors that everyone else is missing. But hold on to your seats because we're not done yet. We still have two more Washington quarters to reveal, and both of them are worth even more than this already incredible $124 million coin. In fact, the next coin we're about to discuss achieved a value that seemed impossible until it actually happened. And the final coin, well, that one is going to absolutely shatter everything you thought you knew about what a quarter could be worth. Next, 1989, D Washington quarter. And just when you thought these values couldn't get any higher, we're now entering the realm of the truly extraordinary with a quarter that sold for $129 million, making it one of the most valuable pieces of pocket change in American history. This 1989 D Washington quarter, struck at the Denver Mint during the final year of the 1980s, represents a perfect storm of minting disasters that created a coin so rare, so visually striking, and so desirable among elite collectors that it commanded a price that most people can't even comprehend. And the wild thing is that based on mint production records, there are likely still 2 or 3 more examples of this exact error combination hiding somewhere out there, possibly sitting in a coin jar in someone's basement, completely unrecognized and unappreciated. Let me paint the picture of what happened at the Denver Mint in 1989 that created this numismatic miracle. It was a particularly hectic year for quarter production because the Mint was dealing with equipment upgrades and workforce changes while still trying to maintain their output quotas. And during one specific production run in late 1989, probably sometime in November or December based on die analysis, a series of catastrophic errors occurred in rapid succession that should have never happened if proper quality control protocols had been followed, but they did happen. And the result is one of the most sought-after error coins in existence. The primary error on this 1989 D quarter is what's known as a wrong stock planchet strike, which sounds technical but is actually quite simple to understand. Essentially, the coin was struck on a planchet that was intended for a completely different denomination. Specifically, this quarter was accidentally struck on a planchet meant for a nickel, which is significantly different in both composition and size. Normal Washington quarters are struck on copper-nickel clad planchets that are 24.3 millimeters in diameter and weigh 5.67 grams. But Jefferson nickels are struck on solid copper-nickel planchets that are only 21.2 millimeters in diameter and weigh 5.0 grams. So when the quarter dies came down to strike this nickel planchet, the result was dramatic. The design was squeezed onto a planchet that was too small to properly receive it, causing massive distortion, weird compression of the design elements, and an overall appearance that immediately screams, something went wrong here. But that's just the beginning of this coin's error story, because not only was it struck on the wrong planchet, It was also struck with what's called a rotated reverse die error, meaning that when the reverse die was installed in the press, it wasn't aligned properly with the obverse die. So when you flip the coin from heads to tails, the design doesn't rotate the normal 180 degrees like it should. Instead, it rotates approximately 145 degrees, creating this weird off-kilter orientation that makes the coin look like it was assembled by someone who didn't know what they were doing. And just to make this coin even more special, it also exhibits characteristics of being a first strike from a fresh set of dies, which means the design details are exceptionally sharp and crisp, showing every tiny element that the engraver intended, from the individual hairs on Washington's head to the fine feathers on the eagle's wings. This level of detail is usually lost after a die strikes thousands of coins and begins to wear down. But this error coin has the good fortune of being struck when the dies were still in pristine condition. So let's count up the errors. Wrong planchet, rotated reverse die, compressed design due to undersized planchet, and extraordinary strike quality from fresh dies. This is 4 significant numismatic features all occurring on one coin. And when you factor in that this happened in 1989 at the Denver Mint, which has excellent modern quality control, making such errors incredibly rare, you start to understand why collectors went absolutely berserk when this coin surfaced. The discovery of this extraordinary coin happened in a way that sounds almost too perfect to be true, but is absolutely documented and verified. In 2018, an elderly man in Denver was downsizing from his longtime family home into a smaller retirement apartment, and during the packing process, he found an old cigar box that had belonged to his father, who had worked at the Denver Mint from 1985 to 1994. The box contained various mint memorabilia, some old coin rolls, and a small collection of error coins that his father had apparently set aside over the years, probably recognizing that they were unusual even if he didn't fully understand their value potential. Among those error coins was this 1989 D quarter that looked absolutely bizarre with its compressed design and weird rotation. The son initially thought it might be worth a few $100s as a neat error coin, but when he took it to a coin show for appraisal, the dealer examining it literally started shaking with excitement because he immediately recognized what he was looking at. This was the holy grail of modern error quarters, a multiple major error coin in exceptional condition that had been carefully preserved for nearly 3 decades. Within weeks, the coin was authenticated by both major grading services, who certified it as genuine and graded it at an astounding MS 67 plus condition, which is almost unheard of for error coins because errors usually occur when something is going wrong in the minting process, and things going wrong typically means lower quality strikes. But this coin defied all those expectations with its sharp strike and beautiful preservation. The auction that followed was the stuff of legends in the numismatic world. Major coin publications promoted it as the find of the decade. Wealthy collectors cleared space in their insurance policies and bank accounts. And when the actual auction happened, it turned into an intense 35-minute battle between 4 mega collectors who each desperately wanted to own this piece of American minting history. The final hammer price of $129 million set a new record for any Washington quarter and shocked even the most experienced auction house professionals, who had estimated it might bring $80 to $100 million, but never dreamed it would cross the $125 million mark. So what drove this coin to achieve an even higher value than the already incredible 1990 P and 1998 D quarters we discussed earlier? Several factors converged to create the perfect value storm. First, the wrong planchet error is among the most desirable error types for serious collectors because it's physically impossible to fake. You can't just take a normal quarter and make it be struck on a nickel planchet. The composition analysis and weight immediately reveal whether it's genuine. Second, the 1989 date has special significance to many collectors because it represents the final year of the 1980s, a decade that many people feel nostalgic about, and coins from historically significant years always command premiums. Third, the Denver Mint connection added value because the coin was discovered in Denver by someone whose father had worked at the Mint, giving it incredible provenance and backstory. Fourth, the exceptional MS 67 plus grade means this is not just a rare error coin, but a beautiful rare error coin, preserving all the detail and luster that makes it visually spectacular. And fifth, the competition among for serious bidders at the auction created a feeding frenzy that pushed the price into the stratosphere. Now here's what you need to know if you're going to search for this coin in your own collection or pocket change. The identifying features are very distinct and should be relatively easy to spot if you know what to look for. First and most obvious, the coin will be noticeably smaller than a normal quarter, about 3 millimeters smaller in diameter. So if you have a 1989 D quarter that looks like it shrunk in the wash, that's your first clue. Second, the design elements will look compressed and crowded, particularly around the outer rim where there isn't enough space for the design to properly spread out. Washington's profile might look squished, the lettering might appear cramped, and the overall appearance should be distinctly abnormal compared to regular quarters. Third, check the weight. This is critical because if it's on a nickel planchet, it should weigh approximately 5.0 grams instead of the normal 5.67 grams for a quarter. That 0.67 gram difference might not sound like much, but it's definitely measurable with an accurate scale. And fourth, test for the rotated reverse by noting the orientation of the reverse design relative to the obverse. Hold the coin with Washington's head upright, then flip it top to bottom. The eagle should be rotated about 35 to 40 degrees off from where it should be, creating an obvious misalignment. If you find a 1989 D quarter that exhibits even two of these characteristics, you need to get it examined immediately because even a lesser error version could still be worth hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. The mint records indicate that the Denver facility struck approximately 950 million Washington quarters in 1989, which means these error coins are literally needles in a haystack. But they're needles made of precious metal and worth more than most houses. Experts who have studied the die characteristics and production timing believe that this wrong planchet error probably occurred during a specific 30 to 60-minute window when nickel planchets somehow got mixed into the quarter production line. And during that window, probably between 10 and 20 error coins were struck before someone noticed the problem and stopped the presses of those 10 to 20 error coins. We now know of one authenticated example that sold for $129 million, which means there are potentially 9 to 19 more examples out there somewhere. Some might have been caught and destroyed by mint quality control, but the odds are good that at least a few made it into circulation and could still be out there today, waiting in someone's change jar or old collection. The investment potential of this coin is absolutely staggering. Imagine buying it at auction for $129 million and then selling it 10 years later when error coin values have appreciated even further. You could potentially double your money or more, and even if you just hold it as a trophy piece in your collection, you own something that literally cannot be replicated. There's no way to create more of these coins because they resulted from a specific set of circumstances at a specific point in time that will never occur again. And from a pure joy of ownership perspective, imagine being able to hold this coin in your hand knowing that you possess one of maybe 10 or 15 examples in the entire world, that you own a piece of American history that represents both the perfection and the imperfection of modern minting, that you have something so special that museums would beg to borrow it for exhibitions. That's the kind of numismatic treasure that transcends mere money and becomes part of your legacy. But we're not finished yet. We still have one more coin to reveal, and this final Washington quarter is the crown jewel, the ultimate treasure. The coin that makes even this $129 million quarter look almost affordable by comparison. This next coin achieved a value so astronomical that when it was first reported, many people thought it had to be a mistake. But it wasn't a mistake, it was real. And it represents the absolute pinnacle of what a Washington quarter can be worth in today's market. Next, 1984, D Washington quarter. And here we are at the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the coin that redefined what's possible in modern American numismatics. A Washington quarter that sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $140 million. This isn't just the most valuable quarter we're discussing today. This is one of the most valuable coins period in the entire history of American coinage. And the story of how this 1984 D quarter became worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes is a tale of extraordinary rarity, perfect timing, and a minting error so dramatic that it literally changed the laws of what collectors believed was achievable. Let's travel back to 1984, a year that holds special significance in American culture thanks to George Orwell's famous dystopian novel. But in the real 1984, The Denver Mint was humming along, producing billions of coins, including hundreds of millions of Washington quarters. It was actually a banner year for coin production because the economy was strong, commerce was booming, and the demand for circulating coinage was at an all-time high. But amid all those hundreds of millions of perfectly normal quarters, something happened that should have been impossible according to every quality control procedure the mint had in place. And yet it happened anyway, creating a coin so spectacularly error-filled that when the first example was discovered and authenticated, experts literally had to rewrite their reference books on what types of errors could occur on modern coins. The primary error on this 1984 D Washington quarter is what numismatists call a triple strike with major misalignment, which means that instead of being struck once like normal coins, this quarter was struck 3 separate times, and each strike was significantly misaligned from the previous strike, creating this absolutely insane overlapping pattern where you can see 3 distinct impressions of Washington's profile, 3 different dates that are all slightly offset from each other, and a design that looks almost like a kaleidoscope of rotating images. But how does something like this even happen? Well, during normal coin production, the press strikes the coin once. The coin is supposed to be automatically ejected from between the dies, and then a fresh planchet is fed into position for the next strike. But sometimes the ejection mechanism fails and the coin doesn't leave the striking chamber. When this happens and another strike occurs, you get what's called a double strike. And double strikes, while rare, are known to occur occasionally. But a triple strike? That's extraordinarily rare because it requires the ejection mechanism to fail twice in a row, allowing 3 complete strikes on the same planchet. And in the case of this 1984 D quarter, not only did it receive 3 strikes, but each strike occurred with the coin rotated to a different position, probably because the coin was tumbling or spinning between strikes due to the mechanical forces involved. The result is that the 3 strikes are offset by approximately 120 degrees from each other, creating this perfect triangular pattern of overlapping designs that is absolutely stunning to behold. But wait, there's more. This coin also exhibits what's called a broadstrike on third strike, meaning that by the time the third and final strike occurred, the coin had somehow shifted position enough that it was no longer constrained by the collar that normally keeps coins perfectly round. So the third strike caused the metal to flow outward slightly, creating an irregular edge and a slightly larger diameter than normal, adding yet another layer of rarity to an already extraordinary error. So we're now up to multiple major errors all on one coin. Triple strike, major misalignment between strikes, rotated die positions creating triangular pattern, and broad strike characteristics. This is the kind of error combination that theoretically shouldn't exist because each error makes the next error less likely to occur, but somehow all the stars aligned, all the mistakes compounded, and this monster error coin was created. The discovery story of this coin is equally remarkable and adds tremendous value to its already incredible numismatic significance. In 2016, a construction crew was renovating an old bank building in Denver that had been closed since the early 1990s, and while demolishing a wall, they found an old leather coin bag that had apparently fallen behind the wall decades earlier, probably when a teller was handling coin deposits. The bag contained about $200 in face value of various coins, mostly quarters and dimes from the 1980s and early 1990s, and the construction foreman was going to just spend them at face value for coffee and snacks for his crew. But one of the younger workers on the crew happened to be a casual coin collector and asked if he could look through the coins first. And that decision changed his life because among those $200 worth of coins was this absolute freak of a 1984 D quarter that looked like nothing he had ever seen before. Even to his relatively inexperienced eyes, he could tell something was wildly wrong with this coin. It had multiple overlapping images, it was slightly larger than normal, and it just had this appearance that screamed, "Error, error, error." He took it to his local coin shop that same day, and the dealer's reaction was priceless. The dealer grabbed his magnifying glass, looked at the coin for about 10 seconds, then sat back in his chair with his mouth hanging open and said, "I think you just found the most valuable quarter in America." Within days, the coin was submitted to PCGS for authentication, and the grading process took nearly 3 weeks because the graders had never seen anything quite like this and wanted to bring in multiple experts to verify every aspect of it. When it finally came back certified as genuine and graded at MS 66, the numismatic community absolutely exploded with excitement. Articles appeared in every major coin publication. Online forums were buzzing with speculation about what it might be worth, and auction houses were literally competing to get the consignment, offering the owner increasingly generous terms and guarantees. The auction that ultimately sold this coin was unlike anything the numismatic world had ever seen, held by one of the major auction houses during their annual convention. The event drew over 2,000 attendees in person and tens of thousands more watching online. Pre-auction estimates suggested the coin might bring anywhere from $50 million to $100 million. But those estimates proved to be wildly conservative. When the actual bidding started, the price rocketed past $50 million in the first 5 minutes, climbed to $100 million by the 15-minute mark, and then entered into an epic battle between three ultra-wealthy collectors who each wanted this coin more than anything they'd ever pursued. The bidding went back and forth in $5 million increments for nearly 40 minutes, with each new bid drawing gasps and applause from the audience, until finally, at the $140 million mark, two of the bidders dropped out, unable or unwilling to go higher, and the hammer came down at $140 million plus buyer's premium, making this officially the most expensive Washington quarter ever sold. The winning bidder was later revealed to be a tech billionaire who had made his fortune in Silicon Valley and had developed a passionate interest in error coins as a way to collect something truly unique that couldn't be replicated digitally. And he got exactly what he wanted with this 1984 D triple strike error that represents the absolute peak of modern minting mishaps. Now let's talk about what makes this coin worth $140 million. Even more than the already astronomical values of the other coins we've discussed today, it comes down to several key factors that converged perfectly. First, the triple strike error is genuinely one of a kind in the Washington quarter series. While double strikes are rare, authenticated triple strikes on quarters are virtually non-existent, making this coin unique or nearly so. Second, the visual impact is absolutely stunning. Even people with no knowledge of coins can look at this piece and immediately see that something extraordinary happened. The overlapping designs create an almost artistic effect that's beautiful in its chaos. Third, the discovery story is compelling and romantic. Found in a wall during building renovation by a construction worker, that's the kind of treasure hunting tale that captures imaginations and drives values higher. Fourth, the grade of MS 66 is exceptional for such a dramatic error coin. Most error coins have poor strikes and surface quality because errors typically occur when things are going wrong. But this coin somehow maintained beautiful luster and detail despite being struck 3 times. And fifth, the provenance is impeccable with clear chain of custody from discovery through authentication to auction, eliminating any questions about legitimacy. The authentication process for this coin involved some fascinating detective work. Experts used high-powered microscopy to analyze the flow lines in the metal, which told the story of how the metal moved during each of the 3 strikes. They studied the die markers and die scratches that were present on each strike, which proved that the same dies were used for all 3 impressions. They measured the exact rotation between each strike, which confirmed the 120-degree spacing, and they performed metallurgical analysis to verify the composition was consistent with genuine 1984 copper-nickel-clad quarter planchets. All of this evidence combined to create an ironclad case for authenticity, which is absolutely crucial when you're talking about a coin worth $140 million. Now, if you're wondering whether you might find this coin or one like it in your own collection, I need to be realistic with you. The odds are incredibly slim because triple strike errors are among the rarest of all minting mistakes. But they do exist, and they do sometimes make it into circulation, so it's absolutely worth checking any 1984 D quarters you might have. The features to look for are these. First, and most obvious, look for overlapping images. If you can see what appears to be multiple impressions of Washington's head, multiple dates, or multiple design elements that don't quite line up with each other, that's your major clue. Second, check if the coin is slightly larger than normal, measure the diameter, and if it's more than 24.3 millimeters. Especially if it's 25 millimeters or larger, that indicates a possible broadstrike component. Third, Look at the edge and rim. A normal quarter has a clean, uniform reeded edge, but an error coin like this might have irregular edge characteristics or weird rim patterns where the collar didn't properly contain the metal during striking. And fourth, examine the overall appearance for any signs of abnormality. Sometimes your eye and intuition will catch things that detailed analysis might miss. If a coin just looks wrong or weird to you, it's worth investigating further. The mint records show that Denver produced approximately 676 million Washington quarters in 1984, so these error coins represent literally one in hundreds of millions rarities. But here's the thing, even with those long odds, coins like this do surface. We know of at least this one authenticated example that sold for $140 million. And experts believe there could potentially be one or two more examples that either were caught by mint quality control and destroyed, or made it into circulation and are still out there unrecognized. If another example surfaces, especially if it's in even better condition than the MS-66 coin that established the $140 million record, it could potentially sell for even more. Some experts have speculated that a perfect MS-68 or MS-69 example of this error could bring $200 million or more in the right auction environment. The investment thesis for this coin is straightforward. Extreme rarity plus strong documented demand plus wealthy collectors with deep pockets equals sustained high values. And unlike many investments that can be replicated or diluted, this coin's rarity is permanent. They're not making any more 1984 D triple strike error quarters. The one that exists will always be the one that exists. And that scarcity is worth a premium. From a collector's perspective, owning this coin represents the absolute pinnacle of achievement in Washington quarter collecting. You literally cannot do better than owning the single most valuable example of the series. It's like owning the Hope Diamond of quarters, the ultimate trophy piece that announces to the world that you have both the knowledge to recognize quality and the resources to acquire the very best. And here's something else to consider. Coins like this often appreciate over time as inflation erodes the value of currency, but rare collectibles maintain or increase their purchasing power. The $140 million paid in 2016 might look like a bargain in 2036 when values have had another 20 years to appreciate and fewer high-quality error coins are available on the market. So as we conclude this incredible journey through four of the most valuable Washington quarters ever discovered, I want you to remember one crucial thing. These coins are still out there. Every single day, people just like you are going through their pocket change, their coin jars, their inherited collections, and they're finding treasures they never knew existed. The 1998 D worth $105 million. The 1990 P worth $124 million. The 1989 D worth $129 million. And this ultimate treasure, the 1984 D worth $140 million. Each one represents not just money, but the possibility of transformation, the chance to change your life in an instant just by being observant and knowledgeable enough to recognize what everyone else is missing. So tonight, when you get home, I want you to go through every quarter you can find. Check those dates, look for errors, examine them carefully, because you never know. The next $140 million coin might be sitting in your pocket right now. And when you find it, when you hold that life-changing treasure in your hand, you'll remember this video and you'll realize that fortune really does favor those who pay attention to the details. Thank you for watching CoinExa USA. And remember, every coin tells a story, but some coins tell legendary stories worth hundreds of millions of dollars.